Hello kind people of YouTube and welcome back to another video. We have a lot to talk about today in the crypto space, so let's get straight into it with a prediction by Bobby Lee, who of course infamous for his bullish predictions, now says he thinks $2,500 will be the bottom for Bitcoin. On the back of an ongoing social media poll involving almost 5,000 participants, Lee, who is becoming increasingly known for his bullish price predictions, said a lot of buy orders and support would keep Bitcoin above $2,000. "I will be very surprised if it ever hits 2,000 again," he wrote on December 8th. "I suspect there will be a lot of buy orders and support at both 3,000 and 2,500 mark. We will see," is his direct quote. Despite a previous flurry of prophecies claiming the Bitcoin price would reverse its bear market, to reach significant levels before the end of the year, markets have so far failed to do so. And here is his tweet with the poll. From then all-time high of $1,500 in December 2013, for the next 13 months Bitcoin went down by over 87% to bottom out at just $150 in January 2015. Rock bottom, all hope lost? Now from December 2017 high of 20,000, going down 87% would take it to $2,500, so maybe bottom out in January 2019. Okay. He seems to be arguing almost entirely off precedent here, and I think that's dangerous. I think that is very dangerous, because markets are cyclical, absolutely. But a lot of this seems rather coincidental. Like he's implying here that because the last time that we saw this happening, we had an all-time high in December, and we saw a bottom 13 months later in January. That because we also saw an all-time high again in December, we would see the bottom in January once again. Now, the actual price movements you can more or less track based on the past. But once you start going into which month of the year it was, I would tell you to be very, very cautious. I think there's a very good chance that we'll go through January 2019 and that we will not hit the low there, that it might continue going down depending on which crypto news are coming out, which big actors are moving into the markets. All in all, I'm just not convinced by his argument here, because it doesn't seem to be based in a look at the situation in the markets right now. Instead, he is just looking at the past. He is noticing, hey, that happened to be the same time of the year. And that seems to be his argument here. Now, his other point, that there are strong support levels at 2,000, 2,500, I'm more behind that. I can absolutely get more behind that. There are definitely a ton of buy orders going to be at exactly $2,000 and slightly above, slightly below it on every major exchange. But the thing is, if there's sufficiently large movement, if there is enough money moving through the market on that day, we can absolutely crash through that. We can absolutely crash through all of those and land at a much lower price. Now, I think what is safe to say is that we're going to be above the previous all-time high at $1,200, because there we should still have a ton of remaining buy orders from after the last time the price was eclipsed, as well as there of course being a massive mental block where people do not want the price to fall below the previous all-time high, because that would essentially mean we've undone the entire bull run before it. But ultimately, I'm not very impressed with his arguments here, and in general, his predictions rarely seem based in much of anything. In my opinion, if you want to make a prediction, first of all, you can never say it's going to happen in any particular month. Like, you can never say this price is going to happen in that month or even on that date. If you're trying to do that, I mean, once in a blue moon, someone is gonna get lucky and predict something correctly. But there's very little value to predictions like that, in my opinion. But what you can do is you can look at events that you know are going to happen in the coming months, and you can look at historical precedent, and you can make a reasonable estimation of a price range that would be logical and a price direction. But I don't really see him doing this, and even when he's making his other predictions, like he has certain numbers that he keeps pushing, and every time his predictions turn out to be wrong because the price has actually gone down since. He doesn't actually adjust those numbers, he just moves back when he thinks they will be hit. So at this point, I'm not sure we should really we should be really trusting Bobby Lee with predictions here. Now, it's entirely possible that we will find a bottom somewhere in the low 2000s for Bitcoin, because that does seem like a reasonable number to fall to. But it won't be, because the last price dip also happened between December and January, a year and a half later. It will be because that is where market sentiment, that is where support levels, that is where general support, where general sentiment is taking us. So I think you should just stop making predictions at this point, to be honest. Because it's just completely clear that there's no real consistent basis. At this point, it just seems like he's throwing numbers out there to get the attention. And I mean, it's working. I'm giving it to him right now. But let's get into some actual news instead. Now, Japan has been pretty tough on crypto, has been taxing crypto pretty highly. And now there are some people within the Japanese government who are starting to reconsider. In October, the government of Japan hinted at its plans to ease the process of taxing crypto investments to refrain impractical taxation frameworks from negatively affecting the local market. At the time, a committee of tax experts that is tasked to advise the government on taxation matters encouraged the authorities to simplify the complex process of disclosing taxable amounts that occur in investing in the crypto market. Prior to that, a local analyst said, if the rapid growth of the crypto sector in late 2017 is considered, 331 is a number that is simply too low to be true. I don't quite know what this 331 refers to. Considering he's talking about a number that is too low to be true, this might be the total number of people who actually disclosed their crypto earnings, because it's so complicated. A large portion of cryptocurrency investors probably did not declare their earnings to the government. This week, Takeshi Fujimaki, a Japanese congressman and lawmaker, proposed 4 major changes to the taxation policies surrounding the digital asset market with the objective of revitalizing the market. And this is his actual proposal here. Taxing cryptocurrency returns is difficult because of the wild volatility of the market. An investor could generate a 50% profit in one week and lose all of it the next week. To reduce the burden on investors and in consideration of the characteristics of the cryptocurrency market, the congressman proposed the following changes. Number 1, reduction of crypto tax gains from up to 55%, that is an insanely high number, to a fixed 20% rate on gains. Number 2, carry forward losses across quarters and years until the cryptocurrencies are cashed out. Number 3, no taxes in trading crypto to crypto. And number 4, no tax on small cryptocurrency payments. Now, some of these are policies that we've seen other countries implement or at least consider, especially here carrying forward losses across quarters and years. Because these markets are so incredibly volatile, and you can really make an insane gain in one year followed by a massive loss in the next. That is definitely a good policy to have, but most importantly here, no taxes in trading crypto to crypto. Some countries tax people for trading crypto to crypto, including Japan right now, and that essentially makes day trading impossible. Especially if you have to manually disclose all of those at the end of the year. That is utterly ridiculous, and that is of course going to stifle the markets. Now, I'm all for all of these proposals, but you have to keep in mind right now this is just a proposal by a congressman, and it needs to go through a variety of stages to actually be put into law. We have no idea if these changes are going to come into effect. But the fact that these are being proposed by a sitting congressman, in my opinion, is very promising for Japanese regulation. That means there is real discussion and that there's people seeing the issues, the potential issues, and aiming to fix them. And honestly, that is all you can hope for, that someone realizes there's an issue and does their best to fix it. And now let's hope the system works as it should and implements these changes. In South Korea, you can soon use a Cardano ADA, essentially prepaid card, to make payments at your local supermarket. Metaps Plus, a Seoul-based mobile fintech subsidiary of Metaps, and Emorgo, the commercial development arm of Cardano, a leading third-generation blockchain ecosystem, announced they have finished technical integration of Cardano native asset ADA on the Metaps Plus platform and launch of the world's first cryptocurrency card based on the Cardano token, ADA token. The card enables users to spend their ADA at over 30,000 offline merchants in South Korea, including well-known convenience stores such as GS25 and EMA24. Users have the option of selecting a mobile gift card or a physical gift card that works easily with mobile app recharge capabilities. Metaps Plus had received over 200 pre-orders for the physical card, which is available in denominations of 100 ADA and 1000 ADA units for use at a wide selection of merchants in South Korea. So this very interesting. We have seen a variety of crypto card projects around the world, but this is the first one that we're seeing with the ADA token on the Cardano network. I think these are an important step towards mainstream acceptance and mainstream use of cryptocurrencies, and I'm always happy to see more of these pop up around the world. Now, there haven't been quite as many as I would have liked to see, and in many countries you cannot buy cards like this even if you wanted to, but I think if we're going to see crypto take over in any meaningful capacity in point of sale transactions, these are going to be the first step. Because these enable you to use cryptocurrencies to pay in an easy, simple way that is comparable to using a credit card, because you're just swiping or tapping the card the same as you would with a credit card. Without any real risk, because these are all prepaid, so you don't have to worry about losing your money, you don't have to worry about overspending on the card, you don't have to worry about security, because you just have these cards with a certain amount of cryptocurrency on them. And these are easy to accept for merchants, and that is also a major thing. So there's of course two sides to this. Merchants don't really see the point to integrate cryptocurrencies if there's very few end users who actually want to pay in cryptocurrencies. So most merchants don't really see the point right now in changing their systems to accept cryptocurrencies. But what they will accept are cards like these that are already integrated with existing structures and that they essentially just get fiat currency as a result. Like I'm just going to assume here that the way these cards work is when you're paying in a store, it will subtract ADA from your account, but that will probably be exchanged straight into the local fiat currency for the merchant. These merchants are much more likely to accept in large numbers, and in turn, end users, people who are actually going to buy things with cryptocurrencies, are also more likely to want to use these because they're simple, they're something they're already used to, and they are more accepted by merchants. The first step for making crypto mainstream as a payment method for everyday transactions, for buying your coffee in the morning, for going to the supermarket, cannot be scanning someone's QR code and sending them Bitcoin. What it can be is little cards that are similar to credit cards that work the same way, that pretty much any store can accept without having to change their systems in any major way, that can be used to pay with cryptocurrencies. And that is why I think these are so exciting, why I hope to see more of these around the world for different cryptocurrencies. Ideally ones that can accept multiple cryptocurrencies on them. Like ideally we would have something like a credit card or something in the same shape and with the general functionality of a credit card that also acts as a crypto wallet, as a multi-crypto wallet where you can put different cryptocurrencies on there, where you can put whichever amount you want on there and use them freely to pay in stores. Now that is not as widespread, but that will also happen at some point. And I think this is going to be the near future of point of purchase crypto payments. So very good to see Cardano here strongly pushing for that. As it says here, this was co-developed by Emorgo, who are of course a development arm, so directly involved with Cardano. So this is Cardano themselves pushing to make this possible, to make payments with ADA easy in South Korea. And I think we should get more of this. This is very nice. And talking about that, we do have a poll here to just follow this up with, that a lot of millennials now actually do believe that crypto will replace credit cards. So how better to do this than with little cards that can physically replace credit cards? But let's look at this, because there are some issues with this that I would like to point out, but it still is ultimately promising. 2018 has marked a new era for digital currency. What once could be described as the Wild West days of crypto have come to an end, and real regulatory development in the space has begun. Even though many of these regulatory measures are still in the process of being implemented, and prices are currently much lower than they were at their all-time high 11 months ago, I believe that 2018 has been a net positive year for the space. I agree. Ultimately, I am hopeful that all of these strides made with regards to cryptocurrency regulation will pave the way for mainstream adoption in 2019 and beyond. But it's probably no surprise that I am a crypto advocate and I felt it was important to gauge. English is tough, because when you're looking at that word, you don't think it's pronounced gauge, to gauge public sentiment on this topic as well. So Bitcoin IRA hired an independent research firm to survey 500 Americans regarding their attitudes towards digital currencies, and the results were enlightening and largely optimistic. Let's take a closer look. And I want you to remember that they surveyed 500 people here. More than 75% of millennial respondents surveyed expressed a positive attitude towards cryptocurrency, along with nearly 66% of Gen Xers associated terms such as investment, curiosity, and wealth most closely with digital currency. And we don't really have to continue reading this, but the main takeaway here is, in this poll, they found that 50% of millennials think cryptocurrencies will take over credit cards, and more than 75% are positive towards cryptocurrencies in general, as well as more than 60% of Gen Xers, nearly 66% of Gen Xers. But what I want to point out here is that this is not a poll you can really rely on in any way, because I don't know how many of you have worked in academia, how many of you have worked with statistics, have worked with polling, have like worked in any relevant field. 500 is a tiny sample group. And then they took this group of 500 and they further subdivided by age group into multiple categories. We know they have a millennial category and a Gen Xer category. We can assume that they have at least 2 more, likely 3 or 4 more categories. So all of these categories, likely assuming they split them evenly, which is what you generally do, but sometimes you can't do that as well if you have a limited budget or a limited pool of applicants. But just assuming that these are evenly split, that means there's about 100 people in each of these groups. And when you're only asking 100 millennials, and then you get 50 saying this and 50 saying that, 12 saying that, 88 saying that, that is such a tiny sample group at that point. And who knows if they further subdivided it. They might have also subdivided it by gender or by something else entirely, by political position, and gotten even tinier groups to... These are such small numbers that you can't really use the results of this for anything. And then there's also the issue, of course, that we don't know how these were selected. We don't know if any bias played into this. There might have been a selection bias from Bitcoin IRA, who used the independent research firm. There might have been a self-selection bias if people could sign up for this. So I just wanted to give you guys a warning. When you see a survey like this being reported on, in the first couple paragraphs, they will usually just talk about, oh, look how many millennials love crypto, look how many people think positively about crypto. But you have to keep in mind, and usually you find this out later in the articles, these are tiny surveys. I would much prefer to see something with at least 10,000 people involved, not a couple hundred. And then they take these couple hundred people and they further subdivide them into groups by age, so you get tiny sample sizes, and who knows if there's even 100 millennial respondents to this survey? Who knows if they self-selected? I mean, I assume that information can be found out somewhere, but the point is, this article does not go out of its way to give details here. So be careful when you see articles like this. Don't read too much into surveys like this. A lot of these, I'm not trying to say that these are not worthy surveys, but to me, when you do a tiny survey like this, you're doing that to show a potential to do a larger survey in the future that will give you more precise information, more representative information. And whenever we see a survey like this that only has a couple hundred people in it, and then they further subdivide these couple hundred people into age groups, take that with spoonfuls of salt, just spoonfuls of salt. You pretty much can't say anything based on a small group like this, especially when you don't know how this group was selected. If they were self-selected, if people had to apply to take part in this, for instance, there's a chance that people who are heavily invested in the crypto space might have been more likely to apply. That might move the numbers. And simply with such small numbers of respondents, you also have pure chance. You have pure chance that could change the numbers significantly. So whenever you see a poll like this, whenever you see a couple hundred people and then further subdivided into groups, don't pay too much attention. Now, the results of this do sound promising, but take them with many, many grains of salt. I do believe that many, many millennials are probably very bullish on crypto, are very hopeful about the crypto space, but I wouldn't be using this survey as proof of that. But let's get back to something almost equally annoying as misleading or potentially not very useful polls. Let's look at Chinese regulation. And China, of course, has been even tougher than Japan for obvious reasons. But if you're not very well versed in what is going on in China, let me just quickly explain. China is incredibly authoritarian and wants to have full control over what its citizens do on and offline, and cryptocurrencies are generally seen as a way of democratizing the population, which China very much does not want. So China has been very tough on cryptocurrencies, while they have been supporting the development of blockchain, but only for native Chinese products that they can control in some way. So now we have them further tightening their regulations, it appears. The People's Bank of China, the country's central bank, highlighted the illegality of security token offerings in the country, English language local news outlet South China Morning Post reported. A deputy governor of China's central bank, Pan Gongshang, I probably mispronounced that, I'm very sorry, reportedly told the summit in Beijing that illegal financial activities through STOs and ICOs were still rampant in the mainland despite a nationwide cleanup of the cryptocurrency market last year. Gongsheng also said that if the government had not stepped in, the chaotic crypto market could have hurt the overall financial stability in China. The central bank official pointed out that the STO business that has surfaced recently is still essentially an illegal financial activity in China. He also reiterated the stance that cryptocurrencies are associated with crime. Virtual money has become an accomplice to all kinds of illegal and criminal activities, he says. Which, of course, is, he's arguing in circles here. There's, if you define STOs and ICOs as crimes, then yes, cryptos are being used for criminal activity. I mean, if you can define what a criminal activity is, then saying that something is an accomplice to criminal activities doesn't really mean much, does it? But the takeaway here is that after already making ICOs pretty much illegal in all of China, we now have statements from major figures in the country's central bank saying that STOs are no different, are equally illegal. I don't believe we have gotten official government statements about this, but we now have multiple government officials saying things like this in public spaces, so this is almost as good. Now, that's a bit of an issue with China because a lot of their policies are just not very transparent. Like, we don't have an official policy for this. To my knowledge, no official government body has come out and just released a statement saying STOs are illegal. But instead, we have representatives from the central bank talking about them being illegal. Like, if you're an investor and you hear this, what are you to take away from this? Like, that's like if you had in America, if there was no law on the books about something, but then politicians randomly started talking about how this or that is illegal. Do you trust those politicians? Or do you trust the legal code, where that law doesn't seem to exist? Are they talking about insider knowledge that hasn't been revealed yet for upcoming laws? Or are they just talking about what they feel it should be? And then we have the added difficulty, of course, that everything we're getting here are translations and could always be out of context or mistranslations. But in general, it's a bit worrying how in China all of this seems to be very, very confusing, not very transparent. You get statements here and there, but then you don't get official policy. And some of this might be on purpose. Some of this might be on purpose to make people distrust crypto investments, without actually officially making any laws about them. But to me, this is worrying, and like I said, China is very, very authoritarian, is a very controlling state that really limits its citizens' rights. And in addition to having these limited rights, then you have uncertainty about which rights you even have. This is not good, and it is further another one of their attacks on cryptocurrencies in general. China is very much trying to undermine cryptocurrencies because they see them as a threat. And to be clear here, cryptocurrencies are a threat for any authoritarian regime that wants to keep its citizens in check. Because cryptocurrencies, at least in theory, are decentralized, are democratic, and are immutable. So cryptocurrencies can and have been used for political protest, for the transfer of information that a government would like to censor, but cannot censor because you cannot censor something that is on a blockchain. I'm pretty sure it was Bitcoin, but it might have been Ethereum. The blockchain has actually been used to contain letters from Chinese dissidents that the Chinese government would very much not like to be available, but they can't remove them because they're on the blockchain. So China is seeing crypto as a threat, and they're further cutting down on that. And now, last but not least, we have another over-the-counter marketplace offering XRP. And before we start reading this, I would just like to point out that this is a press release, so this is, I didn't mean to click on that. So this is paid for to appear on AMB Crypto. AMB Crypto, of course, was involved in a massive scandal about 2 months ago that I also talked about on the channel, with them allowing companies to place articles paid in their website, with no declaration that they were paid content. They have now changed that. Now there's a little press release button. But this is so easy to miss that I was reading this article for, I think I had read about a paragraph and a half before I noticed this was essentially an ad. So keep that in mind, and we'll notice that when we read it. But I figured despite the company having paid to make this article available here as a press release, this is still relevant information for XRP, so I'm going to read the first bits of it. CoinCola has officially listed XRP as a supported asset on its over-the-counter marketplace. The surge in traditional volume has led to the online trading platform to adopt XRP to meet high demand as the digital asset surpasses Ethereum in market cap. XRP, operated by RippleNet, has proven to be one of the most resilient digital assets in the field, as it consistently weathers bear market conditions. While some markets plunged over 18% during the November 2018 crash, XRP took a modest hit of only 3.2%. But then if we read further into this, they're just talking about how great XRP and CoinCola are. And towards the end of this, how to get XRP. With fast and free registration, CoinCola offers one of the cheapest and easiest ways to begin trading XRP and various other legal digital assets. This is an ad, so keep that absolutely in mind. This is an ad, but the thing they're advertising here is still relevant because this is another exchange, an over-the-counter retailer offering XRP. And why is this relevant? Over-the-counter, a lot of people watching the channel probably are not dealing in over-the-counter purchases, and understandably. Over-the-counter is usually how companies and how billionaire investors buy these. But what this tells us, what this platform adding XRP tells us, is that there is growing demand from people with a lot of money, and also from people who want to keep their actions private. Because they don't want to do it on an exchange, they want to do it over-the-counter. That there is growing demand to buy XRP by people with a lot of money, by companies who want to keep their dealings secret or relatively secret. You can't keep anything on a blockchain completely secret. But this is a very good sign for XRP because this means people are stocking up, and in ways that we don't necessarily see on exchanges or on market cap aggregators. So there's a lot happening in the background for XRP that we don't necessarily see. And there have been some rumors about major companies buying a large amount of XRP lately, and this is further going in the same direction. So take this article with many grains of salt, because it's kind of evil how the first couple paragraphs sound like an actual news update, and then towards the end it turns more and more into an ad, like an outright ad. But the fact behind this, that this platform is now offering XRP as an over-the-counter addition to their marketplace, that is relevant news. So let's just talk about that part and let's ignore all the crap behind it, all the ads behind this. I think they need to do better, to be honest, in making sure people realize this is a press release, because despite this tiny little button here that if you scroll down a bit is gone, despite that tiny little button, if you just start reading this, it sounds like a news article. The first three paragraphs, that's just a news article. And then they talk about XRP for a bit, and that also sounds a bit too positive, a bit too biased, but it still just sounds like news. And then the entire last bits of the article are just an outright ad. So one of the reasons I read this out here is to give you guys a warning, because this isn't just AMB Crypto doing this, but AMB Crypto has been very bad about it. Because in the past they didn't even have that little press release button here. But there is a lot of paid content in the crypto world. And a lot of it is not disclosed, or if it is disclosed, it's disclosed in some tiny way where you're easily going to miss it. Like, in my opinion, the fact that this is a press release should be up here in the beginning of the article. There should be like a paragraph here noting that. Not just this little button here. That there's always a button like this. And that because of that, people just ignore what it says in it. Because it usually just has the category of the news. So they have to be better about this. But that's why I'm telling you guys, be careful when you're reading crypto news. Either, in a lot of cases, there will just be a tiny little thing somewhere telling you that what you're reading is an ad. And don't be mistaken here, press release means ad. Press release means this was provided by the company to be posted on their platform for money. So you're reading an ad. But then there's also various crypto pages still who offer paid content without disclosing at all. So when you're reading something, and when you're suddenly noticing, this sounds a bit too positive, this sounds like they're trying to sell me something, you are almost certainly reading an ad. So be careful. A lot of people in the crypto space are out to not quite betray you, but they're out to, and also not quite defraud you, because in this case at least it does disclose that it is paid. But a lot of people in the crypto world don't have your best interests in mind and want to mislead you, want to sell you something in a very sneaky, very unethical way. And despite the core underlying thing here, XRP being added to yet another marketplace where you can buy it over the counter, that is genuinely good news for Ripple and XRP, and that is genuinely newsworthy. That would be newsworthy even if the company wasn't paying AMB Crypto to post this, which is why I'm talking about it as well. This is genuinely newsworthy. But what you're reading here is an ad. Be aware, these ads are everywhere in the crypto space. Sometimes they are disclosed well. Most of the time they are disclosed badly or not disclosed at all. And it's a way of preying on the crypto world that is for some reason acceptable. And that for some reason we have decided that we're going to just let slide by. I'm not a fan of it at all, which is why I'm always pointing it out when I see it. But okay, take two messages away from this. First of all, XRP listed as over-the-counter asset in yet another marketplace means there might be a lot of people buying large amounts of XRP in a way that we're not necessarily seeing, gearing up for the future. XRP has a bright future. That is one thing. But the other is, be careful, pay attention, do your due diligence, and if something seems like it's too biased, too positive, like it's hyping something up or like it's trying to sell something, you're probably reading an ad, even if it doesn't disclose it or even if it discloses it badly. So be careful, and with that I'm going to end this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed already, I upload daily crypto update videos, discussion videos like this every single day, so do subscribe. If you are subscribed already and you like my content, there are a bunch of ways to support me monetarily in the description. If you don't want to give me money or can't give me money, I would really appreciate if you just left a comment and a like on this video. I know every YouTuber asks you to do stuff like this, but it really genuinely helps. A couple extra likes are the difference between a video getting thousands of extra views in the future or not. Like, it can really be that simple, because YouTube pushes videos based on how much interaction there is, based on how many people like, based on how many people comment, based on how long of the video people watch. So if you watch a video all the way through and leave a like and leave a comment, you're really helping me out. So anyone who does that, you're awesome. And all the articles are of course linked in the description, as well as my social media pages. Thanks for watching.